A workbook is the entire Excel document that you're looking at on screen. It is different from a worksheet. A worksheet is this area right here, and this is where you would be doing most of your work. Now you can have multiple worksheets inside a workbook, and to access this, you can go down here to the bottom left corner and you can click on the plus icon to create multiple worksheets. You can also right click on the worksheet tab to delete a worksheet, or you can right click on the tab to rename a worksheet. Now these blocks on your screen are called cells. Each cell has a cell address. The way you find the cell address is the column name plus the row number. So to get to this cell, as you can see, it's in the E column and it's on row number 11, and you can see up here that it is E11. If you need to jump to a different cell, you can either click on it or you can go to the cell up here and type O11 and it will go to O11. The top part where you can see A, B, C, these are called columns. You can also adjust the width of your column in a couple of different ways. Here's an example. As you can see, this sentence has exceeded the width of the line by a lot. So there are a couple of ways to adjust the column width. One is to click at the edge of your column and drag it across to the exact amount of width that you need. Or you can double click the exact same spot and it will auto adjust to the exact amount of width that is required to fit that line. You can also adjust the height of the row the exact same way. You can either drag it or you can double click to auto fit. This section where you see home, insert, draw, page layout, formula, data, review, view and all, this area is called the ribbon. Now almost all of the features of the Excel sheet can be accessed through the ribbon. For example, if you need to format the Excel sheet, most of that can be found in the home section. If you need to insert a pivot table or a picture or any such thing on your Excel sheet, you can find that in the insert tab. You can go into the draw tab to draw something in your Excel sheet. You can go to the page layout tab to change the layout of your Excel sheet. The formula tab will give you access to a lot of different formulas if you're not already familiar with them. The data tab will give you access to features like text to columns and so on. Now let's say I need to edit this sentence that I've just written. You have two options. And for example, I'm going to say please, right? I can do that by just double clicking on the area, or I can click on the formula bar up here. This area is called the formula bar. I can click on the formula bar and I can go ahead and edit whatever I need to. Speaking of the formula bar, there are a lot of different formulas that you can use in Excel to make your life easy. The way to start any formula is by typing the equal to sign. And equal to in essence works similar to how you would use equal to in your math class. So for example, this is cell number D9 and this cell number D9 I want to say is equal to cell number D7. And if I hit enter, it will bring the exact same information. But as you can see on the formula bar, it says equal to D7 and it doesn't look like this area on the formula bar where I've actually written the data. So if I delete this, the data from D9 becomes 0 because there's nothing in D7. Likewise, let's say you have two numbers, 2 and 3, and you need to add it up. All you have to do is equal to, select the first one, click on plus and select the second one, and there you have it. You have the sum of D6 and E6. Now let's get to formatting. If you need to change the font of your text, you can find it in the home section of your ribbon. You can change the font to anything you like. Likewise, right next to that, you can adjust the size of your font by either selecting the font size, or you can do up or down on the font size buttons. You can also bold your text, you can italicize it, or you can underline it right here. One of the fastest and easiest ways to impress your boss is to include borders on your text so that it looks much neater and much nicer when you send across your Excel sheets. You can change the color of your cells by clicking on the fill color button, and you can change the color of your text by clicking on this button right here and changing it to whatever you like. Let's say that ABC are departments in a company and these two sections denote two different companies. This first company is called 123 and the second company is called 345. As you can see, this really doesn't look good and it doesn't really explain to the viewer what they are looking at. Even if you create a table by using the borders, it makes no sense. The way to overcome this is by using the merge feature. Select the data, click on merge in your home, and likewise do the same. As you can see, it makes so much more sense and it is so much easier to understand. You can also change the alignment of the cells exactly the way you want in the home section on your ribbon. As an example, I've written a really long sentence here and you can see that it doesn't fit into the columns width. So how do you overcome this? As I said earlier, you can either change the size of the column, or in some cases where you can't do that for various reasons, you can go ahead and click on the wrap text feature, which then brings it into the same cell, but it increases the number of lines where the text is displayed. Now, as you can see, I've added some data to this table. If you need to view some of the items specifically on this table, you can use the filter feature. You can select the data table and go into data, and you can click on filter. This will give you a filter option. You can click on this arrow right here and click on manager to see all the manager items. You can go ahead and clear the filter by clicking on clear filter. You can also click on the date filter and you can filter it exactly the way you want. You can also see that the numbers in this column don't have a comma or a decimal point. To get this, all you have to do is go back to the home section, select the data where you need to change it and click on the comma button in the ribbon. You can increase or decrease the decimal points by clicking on these buttons, or if you need to convert it into a percentage, you can do that as well. To give you more control over the formatting of your cells, you can click on the arrow right here and change it exactly the way you want. Now, if you need to add a column right before column C for a new field, then all you have to do is click on D, right click and say insert. You can now go ahead and do whatever you need to do in this column. If you have a column that you don't need anymore, likewise right click and say delete. And it's a similar story for rows as well. You can right click and say insert, or you can right click and say delete. You can always save your Excel sheet by clicking on Command S on Mac or Control S on PC, but I highly recommend using the auto save function on the top left corner of your Excel worksheet, so that if you forget to save your Excel, Excel does the saving for you. Let's start with the sum function, which is the easiest and most commonly used function to add stuff on data. All you have to do is type equal to, type sum, open the bracket, and then as you can see here, it says number 1. Number 1 is actually a range, and you can go ahead and select all the data that you need to add up. So just go ahead and select just like that, and it will give you the total. Now let's say that you have some other numbers here and you need to add that up as well in the same total. All you have to do is come into the formula and you can do comma and you can do number 2, which is the second range. So you can add this range as well into your formula and you can see that it has changed the total. You can add any number of ranges to sum up by separating them with a comma and keep going. The shortcut to use the sum function on PC is Alt equal to, and the shortcut to use sum in Mac is Command Shift T. Now let's get into the specific use cases. Let's say that you want to add up the salary just for the managers. You could do sum and then separate each manager manually with a comma, just like so, or you could just go ahead and type equal to and do a similar thing by separating it with a plus sign. Now these are fine to do if you're using this table and you want to sum up 5 managers' salary, right? But it's not going to work when you have thousands and thousands of lines of data in your Excel sheet downloaded from some massive database. So how would you go about finding out the total of all the managers' salary? One of the options is to use the subtotal feature. To access this, type equal to subtotal and then you have function number. Function number is what exactly you want to do with that subtotal. So in our case, we want to do sum, which is number 9. Hit comma, and the second one is reference. So what is reference? Reference is the range of the table where you want to perform this subtotal. So in our case, it's the same range. Hit enter. It's going to show you the entire sum of the entire table. So the way you're going to get the total just for the managers using the subtotal feature is actually to come into the data and filter the data. Go into the designation section and select only the managers. And as you can see, it now has a subtotal of all the managers' salary alone. So far we have covered 3 different ways to add data on Excel. And if you're finding value from this video, please don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe if you're new. And now we're going to get into some serious business and then we'll do the bonus. The fourth way to get this information is you're going to actually type in equal to and you're going to type in SumIF. Now sometimes Excel can seem daunting, it can seem difficult to understand, but it's really not. SumIF basically means you're going to be able to add stuff, you're going to be able to sum stuff up if certain parameters are met. That's all. You can now see here that it's asking you for the range, followed by the criteria, followed by the sum range. So what you want to do is find the range of all of these parameters that are required. In our case, the parameters that are required are the designation, because we need to find the manager's salary, and the amount, the salary amount, because we need the sum of the salary. So go ahead and select the range. As I said, select the designation and the salary. The second thing you need to find is the criteria. What are we looking for? We are looking for managers. So click on managers and hit the dollar sign. Do you know why I hit the dollar sign? Someone please comment down below why I hit the dollar sign so that those who don't know can now find out. Go ahead and hit comma again. And finally, you need the sum range, the range of the items that need to be summed up. So that's obviously the salary column. Now we are done. All you have to do is hit enter and you have a grand total of 0. If you haven't found the reason already why we got the 0 is because here it says manager and down here I've typed managers. So let's go ahead and get the S removed and there you have it, 168,000 every single time. So what you're looking at is some sample staff data that I've created. The cells highlighted in yellow represent the salary that one of the employees is receiving. I've used the VLOOKUP formula to calculate what the salary is for this employee. Now I know that in this case you obviously don't need a drop-down list here or a VLOOKUP formula. You can just look down here and see that Michael earns 43,000. But where this would come in handy is when you have the master data on a different sheet or on a different workbook. It also becomes a very clean and sophisticated way to present your data to someone. Now, if I need to find the salary of John, for example, I'll have to type his name in and hit enter and the salary will automatically update. This isn't exactly ideal because first of all, it's not practical to sit and type out each name one by one. And secondly, what if you misspell the name? It's not going to give you the correct answer. So in this situation or in various other situations, you'll be better off with a drop-down list. So to create the drop-down list, all you have to do is select the cell where you want to create the drop-down list, go to the data section on your ribbon and select this icon, or in some cases it will say data validation. Select that and down here where it says validation criteria, under the allow section, go ahead and select it and click on list. Now you're going to want to select the source of the data which is going to populate this list. So in our case, we want the names. Go ahead and select that and go ahead and click on OK. After clicking OK, you can immediately see that there is a drop down icon right here on the cell. You can click on it and you'll have the entire list of employees listed right there. And immediately after you select each employee, the salary is now going to get updated with no issues whatsoever. What if you need this to become this? As an example, let's say in this Excel sheet, the employee number column may look like a bunch of random numbers, but the 100 in the first employee number denotes a department. So all of the employees in the customer support department have employee numbers starting with 100. Let's say the 01 and the 02 that you see in between right here may denote the designation. So all 01 employees are managers, all 02 employees are assistant managers, and all 03 employees are executives. Now, let's say you need to do a VLOOKUP, just like how I showed you in my VLOOKUP video, with another sheet that contains the employee numbers, but without the department and designation code. So they only have 982734 and so on for the entire employee number column. How exactly are you going to split this data and do the VLOOKUP function? Are you going to have to go individually, remove all of the first few digits and click on enter? Or is there an easier way to do this? We're going to use the text to column feature to help us achieve this goal. So the first thing you want to do is create a column right after the column where you want to split your data. Now we have a blank column where these data can be split and moved to. The second thing you have to do is select the data that you want to split. Then go into the data section on your ribbon, go into text to columns. Once you're here, you're greeted with two options, delimited and fixed width. In just a second, I'll show you another example where I'll explain how the delimited feature works. For this example, we're going to use with fixed width, and fixed width works best when you have a set of data that is exactly the same width. The alignment has to be exactly the same. Once you're ready, click on next and click on the area right before the data where you want to split. Once you have this line with the small arrow on top, you're good to go. Click on next and click on finish. As you can see, this data is being split from this data. Now you can go use your second sheet where you have only the employee number part and do whatever you need to do with that data. Now the reason this worked with the fixed width, as I said, is because all of this is aligned. As you can see, all of the hundreds and 200s and 300s are aligned. All of the hyphens are aligned. All of the department codes, the designation codes are all aligned, and it starts and ends with the exact same number of characters. Now just to show you how it wouldn't work if the data wasn't aligned, let's say you want to split the department column and we are going to insert a column right here. Click text to columns, fixed width, next, and we're going to hit customer and click on next, finish, and as you can see, it split operations into two separate columns. This is why this wouldn't work if all of the data is not aligned. Now let's get into the second example where I'll show you how delimited works. Please leave a like down below if you found this video helpful and leave a comment if you have any doubts. Now I've created a sample set of data where, as I'm sure many of you have seen, if you generate a bank statement, it will give you a format called CSV and all of the data is split by a comma, and this will work with any other character as well, but this is just an example. So as you can see here, the first item is the date section. This is the description. We now have credit, debit, and the balance amount here. Now obviously this is not an ideal format and we want to split all of this into their own individual respective cells. So all you have to do is select the data again, go into text to columns, click on delimited, hit next, and now what you want to do is click on comma. So as you can see, you can either go with a semicolon, you can go with a tab, you can go with a space even. In this case, all of the data is split with a comma. So we're going to click on comma and we're going to click on next and finish. Now you can see that each column has the date, each column has the description, each column has the credit, the debit, and the balance. Now all of a sudden it becomes very easy for you to format and use the data exactly how you need to use it. Anything you need to do with this data can now be done with ease. Now let's try the text to columns with a space. Let's say like and sub below and thanks for watching. And we need to now split all of this data into multiple columns. Again, go into data, text to columns, delimited, next, and this time we're going to hit space and then finish. As you can see now, like is on one, and is on another, sub is on another column, below, and so on. So you can use this feature any way you like. And if you need to split some data that doesn't have an option here, if it's not a tab, if it's not a semicolon, and so on, you can just hit on other and you can put any character that is in between your data. So you can hit a plus or a minus or an open bracket, close bracket. It doesn't really matter, and it will work and it will split the data for you. As you can see, I've created a sample database showing staff information and how much salary each employee has drawn over a 3-month period. If you need to summarize some of the information given on this sheet, then that's when pivot table comes in handy. So in order to create a pivot table, all you have to do is select the data that has to be summarized. So we're going to go ahead and select all of this data. You need to go into insert and you need to click on pivot table. It's going to ask you two questions. One is what data do you want to analyze, and we want to analyze data that we've already selected, or you can go ahead and select this and change the data that you need to select. But we're going to reselect the data that we have already selected and click on this button. You can also select use an external data source and link it to another Excel worksheet. So we're going to go back here, and the second choice that you're going to have is choose where to place the pivot table, and this is going to give you where the pivot table is going to be created. So we are going to create new worksheet, which means it's going to create a tab right down here, or you can say existing worksheet and you can give it a location where you want to place the pivot table. So we're going to go ahead and say new worksheet and just click on OK. Bam, there you have it. But no, the pivot table is empty. What you're going to have to do is go to the right side column called pivot table fields, and you're going to select the options that you need to be summarized. Let's say, for example, you need to summarize how much was the salary that was paid over the 3 months to each department. Go ahead and click on department and the salary, because that's the information that we need. Now, as you can see, it's showing as count of department and sum of the salary per month. We don't want this. We want each department to be shown, and we want what was the corresponding salary. So go ahead and click here on count of department and move it over to rows. As you can see, instantly the table has changed, and it now shows you the accounts department was drawing 250,500, customer support was drawing 183,000, and so on. Now let's make this a little more interesting. What if you need to show the monthly salary per department? Go ahead and click on the date field as well, and go ahead and move date into rows, and go ahead and move department below the date field. You can now see how much each department was paid per month. Now let's add another step to this, and let's say we want to see the summary of how much each designation was paid. So go ahead and check designation box, move sum over to department. It sometimes puts it in the right field, it sometimes puts it in the wrong field. It's all completely based on what Excel thinks you want. So if the option that you selected is in the correct field, then don't worry about it. But if you think it needs to be moved into columns or numbers or whatever, then you can go ahead and do that. So in this case, I've moved it to columns, the designation. So you can see that during the month of January, accounts department was paying 21,500 to the assistant manager, 17,000 was paid to executives, and 45,000 was paid to managers. And you can also go ahead and right click on any of the values and go into field settings. Right now it's showing me the sum of the amount that was paid to all of the staff. I can go ahead and select count, where it shows how many staff are there in each department and so on. I can also right click and say field settings. I can go into average, which will show the average salary that was paid to each department and each salary and so on. And you have various other features that you can go ahead and select based on what exactly you require. If you also need to change the formatting a little bit, you can go ahead and do that in a very simple way, just like how you would normally use the Excel sheet. Okay, so what's a unique field? A unique field is a set of data that does not repeat itself throughout your worksheet. In this case, let's go from column A to column F. Column A is a serial number field which does not really help us in any other function, even though it is unique, because it goes all the way from 1 to 18 without repeating itself. The employee number field also does not repeat itself because each employee has their own unique employee number. Okay, so the name field, for example, has multiple different Michaels working in the company. Serial number 1 is also a Michael, serial number 16 is also a Michael, and serial number 18 is also a Michael, which means the name field cannot be used as a unique field. Likewise, when you go to the department, you can see that multiple people are working in the customer support department, same in the accounts department, operations, HR, and so on. The designation also has multiple managers, multiple assistant managers. Even the salary field has 2 different employees earning 8,000 every month, which means that the salary field is also not a unique field. A unique field is very essential to do some functions in Excel, such as VLOOKUP. If you don't know about VLOOKUP, I've made a video on that, link in the description. So how do you find out which of your data points is a unique field? All you have to do is select the information that you have, go into conditional formatting on the top in your home section, click on it, highlight cell rules, and go down to duplicate values. You can customize this the way you want, but for the most part in this example, it should be fine. Go ahead and click on OK. So as you can see, all of the data that have been duplicates have been highlighted by this simple click. Now what you have to do is go column by column to make sure that you have found a column that does not have the highlighted duplicate values and which clearly is the employee number field. So now you have identified a field where you have employee numbers as the unique field. Okay, now let's say your manager comes up to you and asks you for a list of all the departments that are there in the company, and all you have to do is this data sheet to work with. What do? You shouldn't have to go one by one and remove all of these items. Click on the data that you require again, copy it, paste it to a new location so you don't mess up the original data. That's very important. Go into the data section on the top ribbon and click on this icon, or sometimes it will actually say remove duplicates. Click on remove duplicates and select OK, and there you have it. You now have a very simple, concise list of each and every department without multiple duplicates. Now finally, let's say that you're in a situation where you don't have the employee number field. Now none of the fields that you have are unique fields, and all of a sudden you're in a pickle if you need to do a function like VLOOKUP. So what do you do in this case? Are you going to break your head? Are you going to do it manually? No, there's a simple solution which will work in most cases. It will not work in all cases, but it should work in most cases. All you have to do is come into a new cell on your Excel sheet, click on equal to, click on name, type and, click on the department field, and again manager, and again salary, and you're good to go with enter. Now as you can see, it has populated all of the information wherein it's showing you the name, the department, the designation, and the monthly salary, and it's given you a list of data which has combined all of the information from your first few columns. Now all of a sudden you can select this data, go back to your home, go to conditional formatting, highlight cell rules, same as the beginning, click on duplicate values, click on OK, and you can now see that this column does not have any duplicates. If you do need to use the VLOOKUP function, make sure you have all of the information there as well. You do the same AND method, and you should have two sets of unique fields, and then you can use that unique field to do the function that you need to do using that unique field. As always, let's start with how the formula works. We either go into a blank cell, type equal to if, and start creating the formula, or you could always go to the insert function option right next to your formula bar to create your formulas that way. Let's first understand the syntax of the if formula and how exactly it works. Let's start off with typing equal to if and open the bracket. You can now see below the cell that it's asking for three different sets of information. The first one is logical test, the second one is value if true, and the third one is value if false. You can also see that value if true and value if false are in square brackets, and you know that the meaning of the square bracket means that it's not a mandatory field but an optional field. The if formula can essentially be used anytime you actually use the words if when you talk to somebody. If something happens, then something else should happen. That's essentially how this formula works. The logical test portion of the if formula is just a test that should turn up either a true or false answer. So now let's try an example. Let's say if I2 is equal to D6. What does this tell you? It's a logical test of Excel trying to figure out if this equation is true or false. In this case, I2 is customer support is equal to D6 because that's also customer support. Let's close this off by hitting the comma and closing the bracket. If you now hit enter, you can see that it shows a 0. But now if I change my department to accounts, it is now going to show false because this does not match this department. Also, if I drag this down and paste the formula everywhere, you can now see that accounts is all nil and everywhere else it shows false. This means that our if formula is working so far. Let's move on to the second section of the formula, which is value if true. What do we want to bring into this column, into this cell, if that value is true? So in our case, we want to say that if customer support is the department, then we need a specific bonus. If accounts is the department, we need a specific bonus, and so on. In this sheet, the company is only providing bonus, let's say, to the accounts department, and they are providing a 10,000 bonus for each employee. All other employees get 0 bonus. So now what we're going to try to say is that if logical test of accounts is equal to accounts in the department column, then value if true. So what do we want if accounts matches with accounts? We want the value of the bonus that is displayed here. We also lock that with the $, and we just close it off. We go ahead and hit enter and paste the formula. You can now see that all of the non-accounts departments all have 0 and the accounts departments all have 10,000. We can also change to a different department if that's what we choose to do, and you can see that accounts now is 0 and customer support now has 10,000. Now let's move on to the third part of the formula where it says value if false. What should happen if the logical test turns out a false value? Now by default, in most cases, it's going to show you the text false or it's going to show you 0 depending on the type of formatting on this cell. But if you don't want to use this default of false or 0, you can have any result that you require in those cases. So in our example right now, we are looking for customer support who is getting a bonus of 10,000. And of course, all the other employees are getting 0 bonus. What we can do is come up here to the formula and say if false. So if not customer support in this example, we're going to say no bonus. Hit enter and you can now copy that formula down as well. You can now see that it doesn't show 0 or false. It actually says no bonus to all of these other employees. Again, you can come up here and change the department and make sure that your formula actually works. And now here's the cool part. What if all of the other employees actually get 25,000 as bonus, right? In this case, what we can do in the formula is instead of no bonus, we can actually change that up to 25,000 so that only customer support actually gets 10,000 and all the other departments are going to get 25,000. So as you can see, the if formula is not at all difficult, but there is one more step to take this if formula to the next level. In this sheet, you can see that each department has their own different bonuses. In this case, the most efficient formula would obviously be to use the XLOOKUP formula. But let's say you don't have XLOOKUP or you don't know how to use the XLOOKUP formula, then you could always use the if formula. It's going to be a little more tricky than the XLOOKUP, but the if works just as well. If you have any questions about the if function, let me know in the comment section down below. So the first part is going to be the same, right? Logical test. Let's say is customer support or I2 equal to the customer support in the department column, comma, value if true. So in this case, we are saying that if customer support equals customer support, right? Value will be this because customer support is supposed to get 10,000 bonus, comma, value if false. Now here's the fun part. We now don't say 0 or not applicable or no bonus or any such thing. What we want to say is if that logical test was false, we want to now create a new if function. We now have a new logical test to be conducted, which would be is accounts, let's fix that with a $, as well, equal to the department. If it is true, we are going to have this 1000 as the bonus for that field. And now if that is not true as well, value if false should be a third if formula. In this case, we are going to say, is it operations? Lock that with the F4 equal to cell number D5 in the department column. If that is true, we select the 5000 bonus option, lock that with the F4 $sign. And finally, value if false, you can either choose the last department, or since there are no other departments left, you can just say if none of these are true, it has to be 2500. Lock that with the $sign as well and close the bracket. Hit enter, and don't worry if you get this correction message. I've just not put enough brackets. Excel has automatically fixed that. But of course, you need to close all of the brackets that you have opened. I'm just going to hit yes here, and the first nested if formula has been created. All you have to do is drag it down, and you can see that customer support now have 10,000 as bonus. The accounts department now has 1,000 as bonus. All of the operations have 5,000 as bonus, and all of the HR have 2,500 as bonus. Now, if you don't know how to use XLOOKUP, most definitely click here and watch the video. You will not regret it. My name is Kenneth. You're watching Boss Your Office. I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.